Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a warm welcome to Deen Mastery. My dear brothers and sisters, have you ever held on to a relationship that felt like a thorn in your heart? You know the one. It causes you pain, it distracts you from your prayers, it makes you question your worth, yet the thought of letting go feels even more terrifying. You hold on, clinging to old memories, making excuses, and praying for a change that never seems to come. We've all been there. Our hearts are wired for connection. We cling to friendships, relationships, and family ties out of love, out of loyalty, and sometimes out of a deep-seated fear of being alone. We convince ourselves that this struggle is a test of our patience. And indeed, sometimes it is. But what if, in some situations, the real test is not in your ability to hold on, but in your courage to let go? What if the constant heartache, the repeated disappointment, and the spiritual emptiness you feel are not tests to endure, but are actually messages? What if Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, the all-knowing, the all-wise, is trying to gently pry your fingers away from something that is harming your soul? What if the door that feels so stuck is actually being closed by Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, not to punish you, but to protect you from a future pain you cannot even see? Today we will embark on a journey of reflection and clarity. We will explore 5 profound signs that may indicate Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala is actively removing someone from your life. This is not a call to abandon people at the first sign of trouble. It is a guide to help you recognize the divine hand of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala at work in your personal life. It's about understanding His qadr, His perfect divine decree, and ultimately finding a profound sense of peace and trust in His plan for you. So, let us begin with open hearts, seeking minds, and a sincere desire to see the mercy of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala in every chapter of our lives. Sign number 1, consistent conflict and toxicity. Let us begin with the first and perhaps most emotionally draining sign, a relationship defined by consistent conflict and toxicity. This is more than just the occasional disagreement that is natural in any human interaction. This is a persistent state of tension, a feeling of walking on eggshells, where negativity seems to be the default language of the relationship. Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His ultimate wisdom, provides us with a profound principle in the Holy Quran. And good and evil cannot be equal. Repel evil with that which is better, and thereupon, the one whom between you and him is enmity will become as though he was a devoted friend. Surah Fussilat 41:34. Reflect on this powerful verse. Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala himself declares that good and evil are not equal. They cannot coexist on the same level. A relationship that is meant to be a source of good, like a friendship that provides comfort, or a familial bond that offers security, cannot fulfill its purpose if it is saturated with the evil of constant conflict, backbiting, hurtful words, and actions that directly oppose the peaceful teachings of Islam. When you are in such a dynamic, it becomes a source of spiritual poison. It's like a slow-acting venom that affects your soul. Your heart, which is meant to be a vessel for the remembrance of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, becomes preoccupied with anger, resentment, and sadness. The inner peace, the sakina, that Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses the believers with, is consistently disrupted and replaced with anxiety and unrest. My dear brothers and sisters, this peace is a divine gift from Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a sign of His mercy. So, when a specific person consistently becomes the reason for this peace to vanish, it is a powerful indicator that this connection is harmful to your iman, your faith. Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala desires ease for you, not hardship. He says in the Quran, Allah intends for you ease and does not intend for you hardship. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:125. He wants for you an environment where your faith can flourish, where you can pray with a calm heart, recite Quran with focus, and perform good deeds with sincerity. A toxic relationship creates an environment where your faith is constantly under attack, where your energy is drained in managing conflict instead of in worship and self-improvement. Therefore, you must engage in a sincere and honest self-reflection. Ask yourself, does my interaction with this person bring me closer to the remembrance of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do I feel spiritually uplifted, supported in my deen, and at peace after we speak? Or does it pull me into the dunya of negativity, gossip, sin, and emotional turmoil? Does it make me more likely to snap at my family, miss my prayers, or harbor ill feelings in my heart? If the answer is that the relationship consistently leads you away from tranquility and towards spiritual harm, then recognize this as a potential sign. Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His infinite love for you, maybe allowing you to see the true nature of this bond so that you can distance yourself for the sake of your own spiritual well-being and ultimate salvation. Sign number 2, it pulls you away from your Deen. My dear brothers and sisters, let us now reflect on what is perhaps the most profound and critical sign of all. We must ask ourselves a fundamental question. What is the very purpose of our creation? Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Holy Quran, "And I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me." Surah Ad-Dariyat 51-56. Our ultimate goal, our true reason for being, is to worship Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala and to live a life that is pleasing to Him. Therefore, anything and anyone that actively pulls us away from this sacred path is not just a minor inconvenience. It is a serious threat to our spiritual well-being and our ultimate success in the hereafter. Let us make this very practical. Think about your relationship with this person. Does your time with them make it easier or harder to pray your salah on time? Perhaps they schedule gatherings during prayer times without a second thought, or they subtly discourage you when you excuse yourself to pray. Maybe they make light of your fasting, your choice to dress modestly, or your decision to avoid haram places. They might normalize behavior that is clearly forbidden in Islam, such as backbiting, free mixing, consuming haram food or entertainment, making you feel overly strict or too religious for simply wanting to obey the commands of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is where the profound wisdom of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, becomes a crucial mirror for our souls. He, peace and blessings be upon him, warned us, "A man is upon the religion of his best friend, so let one of you look at whom he befriends." Sunan Abi Dawud. This hadith is not merely a suggestion, it is a powerful principle. We are profoundly influenced by those closest to us. Their habits, their attitudes, their conversations, and their values slowly, almost imperceptibly, become our own. If the one you consider a close friend is pulling you away from the remembrance of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you must understand that this relationship is acting like a weight, dragging down your spiritual flight. So perform a sincere audit of your heart. After you spend time with this person, do you feel closer to Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is your iman strengthened, or do you feel a sense of guilt, a spiritual lethargy, a distance in your connection with your Lord? That feeling, that emptiness, after you have sinned or neglected an act of worship to please them, is a direct message from Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a profound spiritual warning, a divine alarm bell ringing for the sake of your soul. When you find yourself in this situation, understand that if Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala allows this relationship to fade or causes a separation, it is not a punishment of abandonment. Far from it, it is the ultimate protection from Al-Wali, the protecting friend. Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala is your greatest guardian. He sees the danger that you cannot see, the danger of a soul slowly drifting away from its anchor. Sometimes, His protection comes in the form of a painful, heartbreaking separation in this temporary world, to save you from an eternal separation from His mercy in the hereafter. He is removing a poison from your life to save your spiritual life. He is taking away something your heart loves to protect the one thing He loves for you, your unwavering faith in Him, Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of all the worlds. Sign number 3, the connection is severed despite your efforts. My dear brothers and sisters, let us now turn our attention to a sign that often brings the most profound heartache and confusion: when a connection is severed despite your most sincere and exhaustive efforts. Think about this relationship. You have not been passive. You have fought for it. You have poured your heart out in the depths of the night, in your sajda, making dua to Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have whispered, "Ya Allah, guide us, mend what is broken, bring our hearts together in a way that is pleasing to you." You have exercised sabr, that beautiful, active patience that is a pillar of faith. You have swallowed your pride. You have communicated. You have forgiven mistakes. And you have given second chances, hoping that this time things would be different. You have done everything that was within your human capacity. You followed the sunnah of reconciliation. You were kind. You were patient. You were hopeful. Yet, despite all this, you find yourself standing at a chasm that only seems to grow wider. The phone calls stop. The messages go unanswered. The warmth is replaced by a cold silence. The door, which you were trying so hard to keep open, is firmly shut, and you are left on the outside, your hands still extended in peace, wondering what more you could have done. It is in this exact moment of exhaustion and despair that you must pause and reflect on the profound wisdom of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Understand this, your efforts were not wasted. Not a single tear you shed, not a single dua you made is lost. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala sees your struggle. He hears your whispered prayers. He knows the weight of the patience you carried. And you will be rewarded for it in ways you may not yet comprehend. The reward for your sabr is guaranteed by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala himself. So why did it not work? Why did Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala not answer your dua in the way you had hoped? Sometimes, my dear friends, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala closes a door, not because you are unworthy, not because your dua was rejected, but because He is redirecting you. He is the Al-Alim, the all-knowing, and He sees the entire map of your life, while you are only looking at a single, difficult crossroads. Perhaps that person or that path was leading you towards a future trial that would have broken you. Perhaps they were a barrier to a much greater blessing that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has destined for you. A righteous spouse, a sincere friend, a deeper connection with your family, or a purer focus on your Deen. The closure then is not a punishment. It is a divine protection. It is Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in His immense mercy saying, "This is not for your good. I have something better for you, but you must let this go first to receive it." There is a powerful lesson in Qadr, the divine decree here. When a matter is decreed by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, it will come to pass. And when He decrees that a path is closed, no amount of human force, no clever plan, and no desperate wish can reopen it. This is a manifestation of His ultimate power and authority. Conversely, when Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala opens a door of goodness, provision or peace for you, no force in the universe can shut it. Therefore, the feeling of a door being permanently locked is not a sign of your failure. It is a sign of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's supreme authority over your affairs. Your struggle was your test, and your acceptance of His decree is now your victory. So trust. Trust with a heart that may be wounded but is still filled with Iman. Trust that the plan of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for you is infinitely more beautiful, more wise, and more perfect than the best plan you could ever have devised for yourself. Your job was to try your best, and you did. Now His job is to orchestrate the best outcome, and He always will. Surrender the outcome to Him, and you will find a peace that surpasses all understanding. Sign number 4. You feel a profound sense of inner peace after the separation. My dear brothers and sisters, let us now delve into what is perhaps the most gentle and comforting sign from our Creator. A sign that speaks not to our minds, but directly to the condition of our hearts. This is the sign of a profound and unmistakable inner peace that descends upon you after a period of separation. To truly understand this, we must first acknowledge the reality of the human experience. When a connection we valued is severed, our initial reaction is rarely peace. It is often turmoil. It is a storm of emotions, grief that feels like a physical weight, confusion that clouds our thoughts, and a heartache that makes us question everything. We might lie awake at night, replaying conversations, wondering what we could have done differently. We make dua, we cry, we plead with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for answers, for reconciliation, for a way to mend what has been broken. This pain is real, and it is a test from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, a test of our patience, our trust, and our ultimate reliance upon Him alone. But then, something shifts. It doesn't happen overnight, but gradually, like the slow, gentle lifting of a heavy fog. You wake up one morning and you go about your routine, and it is only later in the day that you realize something is different. You realize that the constant low hum of anxiety that had become the soundtrack of your life has suddenly gone silent. The feeling of walking on eggshells, of constantly having to monitor your words and actions for fear of triggering a conflict, has simply vanished. The mental energy you were expending on managing that relationship, on navigating its complexities and absorbing its emotional shocks, is now suddenly free. You find that you can take a full, deep breath without your chest feeling tight. You find that when you stand in salah, your mind is not racing with 1,000 worries about that person. Instead, you can actually focus on the words you are reciting. You can feel a connection to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala that feels clearer and more intimate than it has in years. You discover a new capacity for joy in the small, simple blessings: a quiet cup of tea, a meaningful conversation with a family member, the ability to enjoy your own company without the shadow of that relationship looming over you. This, my dear brothers and sisters, is far more than just relief. This is not a mere absence of conflict. What you are feeling is a positive, palpable presence of tranquility. This is what Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala in His Quran calls a sakina, a divine serenity that He sends down directly into the hearts of the believers. Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "It is He who sent down tranquility into the hearts of the believers." Surah Al-Fath 48:4. This sakina is a gift. It is a direct message from your Lord to your soul, a spiritual confirmation of what your logical mind may still be doubting. It is Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala's most gentle way of whispering to your heart, "My beloved slave, trust me. I have not taken something away from you as a punishment. I have removed a harm from you as a mercy. I have lifted a burden you had grown accustomed to carrying. I have closed a door that was letting in a draft that was chilling your faith, so that I may guide you to a room filled with the warmth of my pleasure." Let us consider a simple analogy. If you have a deep splinter in your hand, the process of removing it is painful. There is a moment of sharp, intense discomfort. But what follows? The throbbing pain subsides, the inflammation goes down, the skin heals. The profound sense of comfort and ease you feel after the splinter is gone is not the absence of the splinter itself, it is the presence of healing. That comfort is the evidence that the painful removal was necessary and beneficial. In the same way, the sakina you feel after a difficult separation is the evidence of your heart's spiritual healing. The pain of the loss was the temporary procedure. The peace is the sign of a successful recovery ordained by Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. The great scholar Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him, taught that the heart finds its true rest only in the remembrance of its creator. It is a spiritual law inscribed by Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, if the removal of a person from your life results in this profound inner peace, a clearer conscience, a more focused worship, and a heart that feels lighter and more attached to Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you must know with absolute certainty that this was a deliberate, compassionate, and merciful act from Al-Latif, the subtle, the most kind. He saw a poison that you had mistaken for nourishment, and He replaced it with the antidote of His divine peace. So, when you feel this sakina, do not dismiss it. Do not feel guilty for feeling at peace without that person. Instead, cherish it as the clearest of signs. Thank Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala for it in your sujood. Recognize it for what it is. The unmistakable proof that your Lord is your protector, your guardian, and that His care for you is so meticulous, so profound, that He will orchestrate even a painful goodbye to save you from a spiritual harm you could not see, all to lead you back to the only source of true and lasting peace, Himself. Sign number 5. It opens doors to better, more righteous connections. My dear brothers and sisters, we now come to what is perhaps the most beautiful and hopeful sign of all. A sign that reveals the infinite wisdom and boundless mercy of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala in the most tangible way. When someone departs from your life, whether suddenly or gradually, it often feels like a void has been created in your heart and in your daily existence. In those initial moments, even days and weeks, this emptiness can feel overwhelming. But here is where we must practice the utmost trust in our Creator. What appears to be an empty space is actually Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala preparing the ground for new blessings to take root and flourish. Let us reflect deeply on this profound truth. After the period of adjustment and healing, I want you to become an observer of your own life. Watch carefully what begins to unfold. Does Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His magnificent generosity, begin to fill that void with connections and opportunities that elevate your iman and bring genuine peace to your soul? This is not merely about replacing one person with another. It is about Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala upgrading the quality of your relationships in a way that serves your ultimate purpose in this life and the next. Consider the company you keep. Do you find yourself naturally drawn to, or being found by, new companions who embody the characteristics of righteous believers? These are the people who, when you sit with them, remind you of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their conversations are not filled with gossip or vain talk, but with remembrance of the Creator and discussions that strengthen faith. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, gave us a powerful analogy when he said, "The example of a good pious companion and an evil one is that of a person carrying musk and another blowing a bellows. The carrier of musk would either give you some perfume or you would buy from him, or you would smell a pleasant odor from him. And as for the one blowing the bellows, he would either burn your clothes or you would smell a repulsive smell from him. Sahih al-Bukhari. When Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala removes the bellows blower from your life, the one who was scorching your spiritual garments, He is making sacred space for the musk carrier, the one whose presence perfumes your entire being with the fragrance of faith. But the blessings do not stop there. Reflect on your existing relationships. Do you notice that your bonds with family members, your parents, your siblings, your spouse, begin to deepen and strengthen? This is because your emotional and spiritual energy is no longer being drained by a relationship that Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala did not bless. You now have more capacity to fulfill the rights of those whom Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala has made obligatory upon you to love, honor, and care for. The Quran beautifully reminds us of the supreme importance of family ties. And sometimes Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala removes a distracting relationship to return our focus to these primary, sacred bonds. Moreover, consider the doors of opportunity that swing open once that person has departed. Perhaps you find yourself with the mental clarity and emotional stability to pursue beneficial knowledge, to excel in your studies or career, to start a halal business, or to contribute meaningfully to your community. Projects that you once struggled to advance suddenly begin to flow with ease. Ideas that were previously clouded now come with clarity. This is Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala unleashing your potential that was being suppressed by a relationship that He never destined for your highest good. All of these manifestations are the living, breathing fulfillment of the divine promise from our Creator. Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Jabbar, the restorer of what is broken, the mender of shattered hearts and fragmented lives. He is Al-Razak, the ultimate provider, who provides not just in material terms, but in emotional, spiritual, and relational terms as well. When Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala takes something away from you, know with absolute certainty that He is not leaving you empty-handed. He is merely clearing the sacred space in your life to place something far greater, something more aligned with your destiny, something that will truly nourish your soul and accelerate your journey back to Him. This profound truth is beautifully captured in the Quran when Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala assures us, "And whoever is mindful of Allah, He will make a way out for them and provide for them from sources they could never imagine. And whoever puts their trust in Allah, then He alone is sufficient for them." Surah At-Talaq 65:2-3. The way out that Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala promises is not limited to financial difficulties or tangible problems. It includes providing you with an escape from the spiritual confinement and emotional prison of a relationship that was not meant for you. The provision from sources they could never imagine includes the blessing of righteous companions, the gift of inner peace, the opportunity for personal and spiritual growth, and the strengthening of bonds that hold eternal value in the sight of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, my beloved brothers and sisters in faith, when you witness these new doors opening, when you find better company, stronger family ties, and greater opportunities for growth, recognize this for what it truly is. It is not a mere coincidence or a stroke of luck. It is a deliberate and merciful sign from the Most Wise, the All-Knowing. It is Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself showing you with gentle clarity and undeniable evidence that the previous chapter, with all its lessons and pains, needed to conclude. It had to reach its end so that this new, more blessed, more prosperous, and more spiritually aligned chapter could begin under the divine decree and infinite mercy of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So have hope, have patience, and have unwavering trust. The best is always yet to come for the believer who places their hope in their Lord. My dear brothers and sisters, the journey of the heart is delicate. If you recognize these signs in your own life, know that you are not alone. Do not despair. Make dua to Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask Al-Latif, the subtle, the kind, to heal your heart and to grant you the clarity to see the wisdom in His decree. Remember, every soul that Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala removes from your life is a divine adjustment to your journey back to Him. Trust in Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have faith in His timing. His plan is perfect, and His mercy encompasses all things. May Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the wisdom to understand His decrees, the strength to accept them, and the hearts to find peace in His perfect plan. Ameen. And jazakum Allahu khairan for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.